Well, welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Magically with Trevor and Ann. I'm Trevor, and with me is my good friend Ann. And before we start, just a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed, and thank you for leaving comments and liking the videos. We really appreciate it. And how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay too. I think I think last night I did some grounding ritual stuff that seemed to help a little bit with kind of getting energy refocused. Um,
Hmm.
I think so oftentimes we just get on these runs, right? Where we're just running from one event to the next and we don't take time to step back into our ourselves, or at least that's how it feels for me sometimes. What about you?
Very much so. And lately I've had to go on a little bit of a media diet because there's just been so much happening that stage of anxiety is just you can't keep it up for that long. And so I've been stepping back a little bit and trying to, like you said, ground myself and doing things to, keep myself in the moment, like taking a nice long hot shower and taking a nap with a kitty, all those nice things.
Exactly. Yeah, I would like to say that, I've done something quite that productive, but mine was more, I did take a nice long ritual bath with some salts and stuff. And then basically I spent a day binge watching a reality TV show called The Traitors, which was surprisingly interesting and bizarre and a little bit too close to real life. But um, anyhow, it was a good escape. And I think we need those escapes. And like we talked about the last time we did a video, you know, even though there's lots going on in the world, that doesn't mean that we can't find peace and tranquility within our own lives for moments, right? It doesn't mean we ignore the outside world. It just means for moments we find them.
Yeah, and more than that, it's important sometimes that we find things to celebrate. And I thought I'd share today the witch's wheel of holidays for the year.
Oh, I don't know anything about it. So, well, I know Yule. Is Yule one of them? And then,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought, let's talk about holidays and things that we love. So, because
yeah,
we
let's
need
do it.
that right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Yule is the winter solstice. So that can be anywhere between December 20th to 22nd. That's all about the rebirth. That's the story of the Oak King and the Holly King going into battle, but it's not really a violent battle. And the light returning, right? We're celebrating the longest night of the year and the rebirth of the sun that's coming after the darkness, which is lovely. But we have another holiday coming up soon.
Oh,
Before I talk about the next one, I just want to lay some groundwork. There are 8 major holidays in the witch's calendar, and these are called Sabbats. And I could be mispronouncing it terribly. That's the problem being a solitary witch, is you never know how to pronounce things.
yes.
Um, or at least I don't. But there are 8 Sabbats, and they're called the Wheel of the Year, right? And so
Oh,
they're just kind of 4 of them are going to be our solstices and our equinoxes. And then the other 4 are the spokes that are kind of in between that. So we start with Yule, which is our North Star, our winter solstice. And then the next one that's coming up is February 1st, and that's Embolic. Again, I apologize for anybody with mispronunciations. This one is all about new beginnings, early awakening. The focus is like on inspiration and healing and intentions. I really like it. It's kind of a calmer holiday. And
nice.
then in the spring, for the spring equinox, which can be anytime between March 19th to the 21st, depends on the year. That's the basically Easter, only the witches' holiday, we call it Ostara, Ostara. And like the Christian Easter, this is based off the moon or the schedule of the astronomical stuff. So that's kind of cool. This one is it's just like Easter in some ways. It's balance, fertility, growth. At this point, our day and night are equal because it's an equinox. And we're talking about coming into the summer. So this is fertility, planting seeds. Things are getting going, but they aren't full on like boom, which actually is where our next holiday comes in, which I like, but is also a lot. The next one is Beltane, and this one is on May 1st. This is also one of my favorites. It has, it's a, just to be blunt, it's a fertility celebration. I mean, all kinds of things, but above all, fertility, pleasure, creativity. It's May 1st. Have you ever celebrated May 1st, Trevor?
You mean as in May Day?
Yeah.
I always thought that was a Midwest thing. I didn't know if people knew about where you'd leave like candy on people's doorsteps.
Yeah, you'd have a
Yeah.
Mayday basket or something,
Yeah.
you'd leave it in
Uh-huh.
somebody's doorbell. I have a hypothesis that it came from Beltane, and it's just kind of a merged from because most of our holidays, the pagan ones, were there before other things kind of got brought in.
Sure.
So,
I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean, everything's stolen from everything else, right?
pretty much nobody makes their own. Everything's just you create you're not creating new colors in the world. You're just putting them together in a slightly different way,
Well,
and you make
and
something cool.
astrology is ripe throughout everything from Christianity to Hinduism to Buddhism to basically any religion. So it kind of makes
Mhm.
sense, right? That if we're celebrating astrological stuff, that it would be ingrained into I mean, I don't think Christmas being a few days after the winter solstice is by chance, do you?
Oh, no, not at all. I could be completely wrong, but I'm a firm believer that was based on the pagan stuff because the Christians had to convert the pagans somehow.
Right.
And so one of the ways they did it is they took the pagan holidays and they changed them slightly, but they kind of put them at this kind of the same time, so it wasn't as big of a change for
Yeah.
everybody. Um, yeah, Jesus wasn't born likely in at that time.
Well, I mean, there just wouldn't have been record keeping to be that precise anyhow. So, I mean, it's hard to believe in general, even, but, and then, I mean, do you know how to tell which Sunday is Easter?
I can't remember exactly, but I want to say it's something like the first or second moon after something something. I think it's related to the equinox, but I can't
It
remember the
is.
liturgical schedule.
It's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox.
There we go.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Yeah. So it's very much, I mean, they're all related.
Yeah.
And if you go to like churches in Europe, that's why you'll see images of the Green Man everywhere, which is really fun to look for.
Hmm.
Uh, First of all, because the churches, I mean, the architecture for these churches is amazing. The stuff that they did with just basic geometry to get those stone blocks in the air and this and that is fantastic. But also you'll see images of it's a face inside of what looks to be a bunch of leaves and stuff. And it's called the Green Man. And it's the pagans would surreptitiously put this inside a lot of the buildings that they were or on the outside as they were putting these together for the Christians. And I think it was left there because it would get the pagans to come and worship. And then over time, that part got left behind and the Christianity was left. So,
Interesting.
uh, Yeah. Okay. Anyway, also on Beltane, have you seen images in Hollywood, which I hate to say that because Hollywood is not usually right on anything, but of like the pole that goes up and people are dancing around the pole with ribbons
Yeah, the
in
maypole.
town? Yeah, the Mayday pole. Well, it's always the maidens dancing around with the ribbons, or at least traditionally, and the pole is symbolic of the male fertility. So, if you get a chance to go to a pagan festival on May Day, that is what they do. It is kind of fun. And then
Yeah.
they chant, put the pole in the hole when they bring it out. So, anyway, fun times. Um, Summer solstice is the next one. That's the middle of summer. That one is June 20th to 22nd, depends on when the solstice comes. I love that one too.
Yeah.
I love all the holidays. Uh Power Success, it's the longest day of the year. So a lot of it is about, the themes of personal empowerment and stuff. You can do all kinds of things to celebrate the summer solstice. One year, I and some family members did a longest bike ride of the year where, I mean, we had fun with it. We started at dawn and we ended at sunset and we just biked the whole day. I mean, granted, we took time for lunch and snacks and this and that, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things you can do with that. After the solstice, the next one is August 1st. And that one is Lammas, otherwise known, and this one I'm going to butcher, but I say Lughnasadh. It's spelled Lughnasadh. So I try to use the word llamas instead because that one I can pronounce best.
Hmm.
That one is all about the first harvest, fruits of your labor, things, as a farming culture. You and I kind of grew up in that sort of a space, and the beginning of the harvest season is something that's important. And it definitely has been throughout humanity.
Yeah.
After Lammas on August 1st, we have the autumn equinox, and that one has a name of Mabun. So that's sometimes between September 21st through the 23rd. This one is more about balance and Thanksgiving. So our day and night balance again, we give thanks and we prepare for the winter months that are coming ahead. And of course, the last one that we have between the autumn equinox and Yule is Samhain. That one I do know how to pronounce. That's on October 31st. It is spelled differently. It's spelled Samhain, and I believe it's a Celtic spelling. So that's why it's a little bit different than what we would traditionally think. And this one is about death and reverse. This is or rebirth. This is the new year for witches, which is why it's so wonderful. It's a thin veil. You honor your ancestors, you do any spirit work, transformational work. I always do a tarot reading for myself and for anybody who wants it at that point for, what to expect in the first few months of the new year. And it's a wonderful holiday. And then we're back to Yule in December.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that they were like basically equally spaced apart. And yeah, I had heard of several of them. Uh
Hmm.
didn't know exactly what they were and when, but thank you. That's fantastic. Did you know two of them this year, and I forget which ones they are because I didn't write that down, but on February 1st, that holiday's on a full moon. And on May 1st, that holiday's on a full moon.
Oh, Embolic and Beltane are both on full moons.
Yeah, I don't know if
That could
that's
be
just
exciting.
coincidental or or not, but a lot of the the Hindu festivals, they follow a similar type of ritual of, it's the first day after the first full moon after the,
Mm-hmm.
or something along those lines, and they have a variety of different names, and some of them celebrate the harvest and some of them celebrate the planting season,
Yeah.
and it's almost like a farmer's almanac, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which which
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense that, how else are you going to tell time? And, I mean, it's not like you're handing out calendars 5,000 years ago. So, or even adopted the current calendar for that matter. But I think it's pretty interesting that, the moon cycles, which I'm a big fan of, they're ingrained into these Christian holidays, into the Hindu festivals, into, other religious festivals as well. And it's, I think it goes unnoticed. I don't think most people know, for example, that Easter's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
at least, I'm willing to bet that you could fool a lot of people with that question. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, so, I
I think that says that, human beings have always gravitated towards the moon cycles. It gives a very accurate sense of time for us. It allows us to, plot certain things, and allows us to follow the wheel of the year.
well, yeah, I think, it is easy if you were, you know, in the middle of nowhere to keep track of, approximately 28 days by just following the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even, the 14, 15 days between the full moon and the new moon. Of course, there's some complications with, when the moon is rising, when the moon is setting, but for in general, most of the time the moon's visible, right? If it's not a new moon. So, but yeah, I mean, so this year we have 13 full moons, which means we have a blue moon in May. So May 1st, which we talked about, that's a full moon. May 31st is also a full moon. Um, and what I find interesting about the moon cycles is a few different things. Like we all know, well, I don't know if we all know, but the way the sun works is, right, it starts in one zodiac sign and it just slowly moves throughout the year through the 12 zodiac signs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why our birth sign is different based on when we were born in the year. And it's the same every year. So, in late June and early July, the sun is in Cancer, for example. Um, well, the moon does a similar thing, but it's not as clear. But the moon navigates all 12 zodiac signs as well in a given year. Sometimes it repeats, like this year we have 13 full moons. So the first full moon was the 3rd of January, which was in Cancer. And then the last full moon of the year on December 23rd will be in Cancer as well. And so it goes from Cancer to Leo to Virgo to Libra to Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, so on and so forth. It just follows the zodiac, the full moons do.
Mm-hmm.
And the new moons follow in the same way, except for they're in a different order. And I should have looked this up, but I think they're always 180 degrees opposed, right, from the sun, right? The new moons. That's why it's a new moon. Um, and so, the first new moon is coming up on January 18th. That'll be in Capricorn, and we'll go again through, Capricorn to Aquarius to Pisces to Aries to Taurus to Gemini, and in the order of the zodiac. Did you
Mm-hmm.
did you know that?
No, I didn't. I That's one thing I haven't actually gotten too deep into is astrology
Yeah.
and the impact on moons and stuff. Usually I just know the phase of the moon, what kind of magic to do at that time. And that's, so this is fascinating. I love learning new things.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's why this Moonology deck that you have and I have as well is so kind of interesting to think about it as a timing thing because when you pull the full moon in Virgo card, unless it happens to be there's two full moons in Virgo that year, it's going to correspond to a specific date. And so the full moon in Virgo this year is March 3rd, which happens to be an eclipse as well. So, but yeah, I think using the moon cycles is a great way to release and to expand. And the way I always think about I I was always taught kind of opposite the way some people teach it. So bear with me. But right after the new moon, the moon is growing, right? Grows to
Hmm.
become the full moon. And so that's the time where you want to try to manifest things, bring them into your life. And right after the full moon, when the moon starts dissipating or wax or waning, I mean, that's when you'd want to release things. Now, some people do just on the new moon and the full moon, but the truth is that astrologically, that's like, just 1 second in time, right? It's
Hmm.
the, the moon is only 100% full for a very brief moment. So, um, I like to think of it that way. And then, what sign it corresponds to, I think they have different flavors. That's why I always kind of, try to meditate and figure out what the full moon, this new moon that's going to be in Capricorn is going to be about. And, I think it's as we're working towards the new moon, what's being exposed. Well, one of the things that's being exposed is kind of, lying and deceit. And I know we've decided we're not talking about the news today because we don't want to, but um just think about that. The Capricorn, of course, corresponds to the devil card in the tarot. And we're working towards this new moon in Capricorn, so things are getting smaller. And
Hmm.
then we're gonna hopefully release a lot of that. And people are already starting to not buy the nonsense that's being told. And I think I don't think that's coincidental.
Hmm.
And
I,
so
yeah.
after we get to this new moon in Capricorn, then we'll be moving towards the full moon in Leo, which is a great. So the full moon in Leo is on February 1st, the holiday that you were talking about. Uh, which is the strength card in the tarot. So, we'll be moving towards a quieter time. One that, you know, the person who's the loudest isn't the one that's going to be the most convincing,
I
which will
hope
be,
so. Yeah, because I always think of Leo as, a strength, but there are different types of strength, you know.
yes, it's like a quiet
The
strength.
it's a yeah, it can be very much because you see in the tarot cards, the strength card, it's not a tiger or a lion that is, open-mouthed, roaring. We don't see that.
No.
It doesn't need to show that it has that power. It just knows it has that power. And same with the human that is, well, in some of the decks, right, you have a human and we all know that there always are discussions about the internal strength that we get from those cards.
Yeah, in most depictions in the traditional tarot, it's usually a female figure petting the lion as if the lion is subdued by charm. And which is this quiet strength, right? We don't need to overpower the lion. He doesn't need to be shackled or leashed or anything like that. We can just use our own
Ooh,
abilities
I
to
have
overcome.
I have the words for that. We
Oh,
call it soft power.
yes. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. So that's kind of where we're heading in the next few weeks as we go into, this new moon and then to the next full moon. And let's hope these things play out on the global scene the way that, you know, uh, we think they will. And then of course, so as we go through the zodiac, the next this new moon is in Capricorn, so the next one's in Aquarius, then Pisces, Aries, so on and so forth. Um, and we have, of course, every year there are at least four eclipses. Very rarely are there five, and there won't be five for a very long time. Uh, so for as long as we're alive, there's basically going to be four. Um, because it has to be timed just right for it to be five. So the eclipses this year are they come in pairs, right? A lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse.
Hmm.
And so on February 17th, the new moon will be the annular solar eclipse. And then on March 3rd will be the total lunar eclipse. And then again on August 12th, we'll have a total solar eclipse. That one will be a complete one. They're not always complete. The lunar ones aren't always complete either. And the other eclipse is August 28th, and they correspond. They come in pairs, right? The new moon and then the full moon right afterwards, or the full moon and then the new moon right afterwards sometimes as well. But um, that's the way those work, and they're almost exactly 6 months apart. And so they rotate through the zodiac. So the only way you would get five is if you happen to have an eclipse right at the end of the year and another one right at the beginning of the year, and then you might end up with five. But
Yeah.
other than that, generally there's only four. So, um, and I think the eclipses they're usually, they could be tricky. I know for me personally, I think sometimes it's hard to sleep around the eclipses. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I've had other people
No,
express that as well.
you're not alone. It's weird energy at that time.
Yes, but they usually bring about pretty big stuff, right? There's usually a big
Mhm.
theme to the year around the eclipses. So we'll of course take a closer look at that as we get closer. But I think just the the geometry of the witch's year, as I'm thinking about it being divided into eight equal pieces, and the systematic progression of the new moons and full moons
Mhm.
are just interesting. That they follow each other in this opposite sort of way, which is Capricorn goes with Cancer, Aquarius with Leo, right? And so on and so forth, which they're opposed on the zodiac. So, um, yeah. And then, like we said, you can use the moon cycles. I've thought about doing a course on the moon cycles. I haven't quite set down exactly how that would work yet, but um,
That sounds like a great idea. I would love to take that course at some point. And like I said, I know the moon phases, but not how they relate to the astrological signs as well.
well, right, and you'll hear these things thrown out um, without explanation, such as like the balsamic moon, right? And the balsamic moon really it just corresponds to like the 3 days before a new moon. That's all it is.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's just the moon is dissipating, so it's like the perfect time to release things. Um,
Well, okay, completely off, well, not completely off topic, but off topic. When
mhm,
I was young, I would talk about the children's moon,
mhm.
and my mother would ask me, "What do you mean by the children's moon?" And I said, "Well, it's when you see the moon in the daylight because children are still awake, so they get to see the moon."
Cute.
So it's, I mean, it's not a particular moon of any type, but I always, whenever I see the moon in the daylight again, I still think of it as the children's moon.
Yeah, that's funny and cute. And yeah, I mean the origin of the names of the moons, usually it's just the full moons that have names, not the new moons, but like this next full moon in February is the snow moon. That just makes sense, right? And then I don't know why we could look it up. Why is the March 3rd called the worm moon? I don't know.
Well, and then layering that, there are also the Anishinaabe moons. I don't know the names of all of them,
Mhm.
but since, of course, I live in Anishinaabe land, which is actually quite broad up in the northern area. There are definitely different words that they use, but they correspond again, like you would expect, to the ways that we see the world and the things that we see in this world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not coincidental that the full moon in September is called the harvest moon, right? It's just
Hmm.
not coincidental, and I'm sure in the southern hemisphere it's the opposite. If we look at the untainted astrological history of things, right, that's not been influenced by European culture, I think you would find that, these things were done similarly, but backwards, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, it's interesting to think about the moon and the cycles that it goes through. And I think, for me, just knowing that every 14, 15 days we're going to move from a new moon to a full moon, it's kind of comforting because you know that cycles come to an end, and I really do believe that, and I think we're in a kind of a rough cycle right now, uh,
You
just
think?
slightly. And
But yes.
but I
Uh,
but it kind of started with the full moon in Cancer on the 3rd of
mhm.
January, and I'm curious to see what happens by the time we get to February 1st and we're to the next full moon, because I think of full moon to full moon and new moon to new moon. I don't think full moon, new moon, different cycle. I think full moon to full moon's the cycle, new moon to
Yeah.
new different cycle. They just happen to overlap for 14 or 15 days.
Hmm. For
So,
sure.
yeah. Well,
This has been a lovely chat, and I hope that we continue talking about different moons and the different um, celebrations of the year as we move forward.
yes, yes, and we shall. And thanks. I'd like to thank everybody that watches and has been so kind in the comments, and
Mhm.
appreciate all of you. And I, of course, appreciate you, Anne, and
Likewise.
and Carl. Although I don't think we saw Carl today, but I wasn't. Um, but anyhow, should
Well,
we?
and one last word before we go. I just want to wish everybody um, safety, especially our friends who may be in a dangerous place at this moment. We'll just leave it at that. In a scary
Yes,
place.
yes. Do be safe, and yes. All
And
right.
courageous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you,
All
Anne.
right. Thank you, everyone.